What is going on, everybody? Culturedog Sam Hatch back here with a quick and dirty and somewhat blurry, pardon that, LaserDisc player update for the end of 2022. It's been since 2018 that I did one of these, and this is my Pioneer LDS1, which you've seen in prior videos, but again, I figured I'd start with this. It's a reference player, one of the handful of, it's beyond elite. It's the reference players in the umbrella, including the LDS2 and is it the X9 and the XO? It might just be the XO. Anyways, but yeah, this was state of the art in 1988. Has the beautiful urushi finish that's difficult to photograph in daytime, but it's got digital audio. It's got actually two sets of RCA jack audio outs, and one is digital and analog, and one is analog only, which is interesting. It does have digital memory, which I usually turn off in the that little drop-down tray. There's a selection button in there, and then of course there's headphones and the volume for the headphones in there as well. It's a single-sided player. Yeah, it looks better without the digital memory going on. But then again, yeah, in 1988, it was a pretty cool, piece of tech to add to it. It's a gorgeous player. It's got the nice wood panels on the side, and it's still performs great. This is my go-to bedroom player. It has been for a few years now, and if you've watched my earlier player collection videos, you've seen it before. But it doesn't have digital audio out. It just has the DAC pumping it out through RCA jacks. The remote's a little blurry there, pardon that, but it's pretty simple. There's no jog wheel on there or anything like that, and it is one of those players that has the interesting stop and eject function on the remote itself. So you have to hit stop and then hit eject, which is kind of funky. And there's also no power button on the remote either. You always have to use that button down there at the bottom left to turn it on and off. But still, gorgeous player. It's a beast, really heavy. And moving on to just a quick recap of my Quasar LD700. We've shown this in numerous videos before, so if you want to learn more about it, check out my 2018 player collection video or the Quasar-centric video I made when I picked this up. But it is a rebadge of a Panasonic LX900, but it solves the black level situation that the 900 had, and also the 900 runs out of memory for the picture, so it's actually missing a strip. I always forget if it's on the right side or the left side. I want to say on the right side of the picture, but this fixes that. So it's a gorgeous player. It kind of flew under the radar for the longest time because nobody really thinks much about Quasars, but it's LX900 but better. And yeah, it's got some funky stuff on the remote, like the art button, and some fancy digital features you can add to it. It's got noise reduction mode 1, I think I usually use, which is pretty good. Doesn't have Dolby Digital, but it's got a Toslink digital out. You can see the back of the player in some of my other videos as well, but dual-sided, obviously. Moving on to the CLD950. Seth from the Wolfpack hooked me up with this. It's entry-level player. It's come all the way from Sweden, so thanks for him for shipping that. But I wanted to get it because it is a PAL NTSC deck, and I didn't have any. And I started to pick up a couple PAL discs along the way. There's some great music discs, and a friend from France sent along a bunch of French discs of films I liked. So I just really wanted to have something. Eventually, I'd like to get a CLD D925, obviously. But this will do in the meantime. It's kind of the equivalent to like an S201 or something like that. Whenever you see that Pulse Flow logo on the front, it's some kind of cheap player. I believe this is like the next in line after the CLD 1850. It's got a couple SCART connectors on the back. Dig that gold PDO UK disc there. It does have a dedicated CD tray, as you can see. Downside is it doesn't play analog from PAL discs, only digital tracks. And it doesn't have a Toslink out, if I remember correctly, just a single set of AV jacks. But again, it does what it does, and I'm not going to be using it to listen to DTS discs or anything like that. And yeah, it does the trick, and I can actually watch my PAL discs. So now I can maybe pick up some more, get some James Bond discs and things like that. And it does have a few decent features for a cheapy player, and it looks decent enough. And it does have the jog wheel there on there. Not on the remote, however. The remote is pretty dinky and simple, but it does also have the stop eject feature on there. A lot of different remotes for Pioneer players have different implementations of stop eject, and then of course the audio selections for CX encoding and digital and left and right selection. But it's not too bad. I definitely get a decent amount of use out of it. I have a step up transformer, obviously, to get European power, so this juice hungry little beast can be happy. And yeah, it's been treating me well for a couple of years now, so amazingly I managed to survive the journey from Sweden intact. And yeah, so yeah, if you know a good line on a CLD D925, yeah, let me know. Maybe I'll grab it from you. And yes, we're moving on to the beast, the goat, the Sony MDP-333. If you've watched any of my player collection videos, this is featured in all of them. Is the very first LaserDisc player I ever bought, a single-sided player. If I didn't mention the last CLD 950 was single-sided as well. This has a few features LaserDisc-wise. You know, it's got S-Video out, which I did use for a period. It's got an optical out. In fact, the first time I ever heard Jurassic Park, DTS, was on this player. And it does what it does. The tray sticks if the belt is old and worn, but if you have the belt, you know, tuned up and, you know, replaced on a regular basis and or cleaned, the tray doesn't give me any problems. So I wish I knew what I know now back in the 90s, because there was a period I sent it to a local AV shop to get, you know, quote unquote repaired, but $100 later they just changed the belt. So I easily could have done that myself. Also, a shout out to Ethan Gallo, who's been working on replacement belts for this player and a few other Sony players in particular. So I have been testing those. The remote is great, and right above the ACS AMS buttons there, you'll notice those little arrow buttons are the index buttons. I've mentioned this in all my previous MDP-333 talks, but it can do index jumps on CDs with multi-indexed suites. So if you have a track like Rush's 2112, you can jump within track one to all the different individual movements of the song. It's good for a lot of symphonic suites and things like that. Some movie soundtracks have that. It's pretty cool. So it does have a lot of high-end CD player functions jammed into the LaserDisc player. So yeah, it's pretty cool, because Sony was rocking some pretty badass CD players around the time. Just love the stylings of the MDP. It's fantastic. It's been working ever since I got it in 1993. I can't ask for anything more. I mean, my whole entry into LaserDisc, my channel, I pretty much owe everything to this player. And, you know, I hope to be buried with it as long as my wife reads my will and sticks to it. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, got a headphone jack. You got a Toslink optical out on the back, as I mentioned before. It's got that cool little chapter grid, which is pretty cool. And yeah, the S-Video, I heard some people complain about it, but the comb filter in here, I haven't done any shootouts with it in ages, but I remember I had the S-Video going into my old Magnavox 27-inch TV back in the 90s, and it seemed to look pretty good then, but it might not hold up now. That said, I've got this running into my projector with the rest of my fleet. I've got some Extron switchers that I can you know, change selection for any of these players, and this looked pretty damn good on the big screen. I watched a Roxy Music video on it not too long ago, so I'd like to I'll just fire it up and give it a go every once in a while. Keep it up and running. Keep the belts, you know, nice and groovy, and it just keeps on trucking. I love it. The MDP-333. I'd like to get a 999 someday too. And yeah, the Runco LJR II. This is making its first appearance in the player collection video. I grabbed this from Peter Biancardi, and this is another Panasonic LX900 rebadge, though I know MSB was working on this. As you can see there, it's the only THX certified player, the very first time they decided to do that. It's got Dolby Digital AC3 added to it, which the LX900 does not have stock. You'll notice the remote is very similar to the Quasar because it's essentially the same. It even has the art button. But some people have said that MSB actually used Quasar players in this sometimes when they couldn't have enough LX900s. Likewise, it doesn't have the gain control issue for the black level that the 900 had. It doesn't run out of the memory for the image on here. There are 3 different versions. There's like a version with the DAC in it, and there's a basic transport and a studio transport, I believe. And yeah, I apologize for not showing the backs of these, but they're all so well installed that I just didn't feel like pulling them out. I just wanted to make a quick video. So maybe some other time I'll tear them out. If I remember working on it, I'll take some shots at the back end. But I believe this is the one with the XLR digital connection on the back. And there's a few other options. Obviously, there's Toslink on here as well. I tend to use this player a lot for DTS discs. I don't know, it's just one of my go-tos. It's pretty nice. Supposedly, it's got like a 54 dB video signal to noise ratio, which is ridiculous. Again, it's got some pretty clunky stylings. A lot of the boutique players were like, really, I mean, I guess Macintosh is probably the nicest one, but a lot of them are, even the big gold EAD player is like really tacky looking. Like they're very, I don't know, they're like not quite industrial, but utilitarian and kind of cheesy looking at times in terms of the text. At least, this one tries to be a little bit classy with the text, so it's a little bit nicer than the Ferruggio player. But again, you can't shake a fist at the shake a stick at the LJR II. I mean, this was the player for the longest time. I'd always crack open widescreen review magazines, and you just see these huge ads for the LJR II and Terminator 2 playing in the background, and this is just the player you wanted to have. And again, apparently THX just saw the Panasonic LX900, checked it out, and was like, "Yep, this meets our requirements." So it's not like they had stringent requirements for certification, but apparently Runco and MSB did add a few things into the mix here. But yeah, no, sounds great, looks great, double-sided. So it's a tank. It's really, really heavy and beefy. So it can handle the Sony MDP-333 being on top of it. But yeah, it's done me great. I love it. And then we're going to move on to a player I got from a friend a couple of years ago, the Pioneer CLD A100, better known as the LaserActive. Yes, this is half LaserDisc player, half video game console, or I don't know, maybe more 3/4 video game console, quarter LaserDisc player, because it doesn't have a lot of LaserDisc-centric buttons on the front. You have to use the remote to get a lot of them. It does have the CD direct tray, which is pretty cool, and it does have the larger LD tray, but it's staggered off to the side because on the left-hand side here is all the componentry for the video game portion. And sadly, you'll notice I've got the little panel on the port there. I don't have any of the packs. There were a number of packs. There was the S1 for Sega, there was an N1 for NEC, and then there was a K1 for karaoke. Then there was also an add-on for 3D goggles. You can get a lot of fun things for the CLD A100. For LaserDisc player-wise, it's basically the same thing as a CLD S201. Again, very simple, single-sided, but it does have a few extra things that players, entry-level players, didn't have. Like it's got a Toslink digital out, and it does have, if you notice there, it's got a digital memory button. The remote is a little bit bigger than the one for the PAL player I have, but still fairly utilitarian. It's a little bit closer to the LDS one I have. Again, stop and eject all on the same. But yeah, a lot of functionality. If you're going to do chapter skip, as I'm doing right now, you need to use through the remote, because you really can just do play and pause on the front. It's interesting too, the buttons for everything else on the left-hand side are just so big and bulky. They're like video game console buttons, even the power button. So it's very different than most of the other Pioneer LaserDisc players. I'd love to be able to play some of the games. I have checked out some of the games on my friend Bill's LaserActive when he was recapping this for me, because again, there's capacitor problems with all the LaserDisc LaserActive stuff. So he hooked it up, put some new belts in. I believe there's 2 belts you need to change on this guy, but yeah, it does the trick. And someday I'll be gaming on it as well. Ostensibly, the idea was to be able to bring this to whenever I do like panels at Retro World Expo and that sort of thing. And this would be a great thing to bring along and have as a visual aid. because everybody's interested in the LaserActive for sure. But yeah, big clunky power button. It's pretty cool. And yeah, the CLD-R7G, pardon the blur there. This is a beautiful Japanese only market player. It has LDG, as you can see there, LD graphics. I should do a quick overlay of the first player I had that had LDG was the LDS9. And apart from a live stream episode I did, it never made it into any of my other videos and never made it into a proper player update video before I sold it. So I'll do a quick insert of the LDS9. The R7G isn't as, the LDS9 is basically a CLD99, but a little bit beefier. And it's got, steel kind of side panels instead of the wood panels. This one is much more lightweight, but it doesn't have the CLV smear issue that a lot of the players had. And the S9 is one of the smeariest I've seen. Seemed even smearier than the CLD99. But yeah, it's got the jog wheel. It's got everything you want. Nice champagne color. And of course, the remote's cool looking too. Here in the States, the players were just like black, 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 black. But it was nice in Japan. They had a lot more interesting style, Pioneer players in particular. So it's just really classy looking. As you can see, no direct tray. But unlike the unlike the LDS9, this actually does play CDs as well because it's a CLD combi player. It's got that three-dimensional YC separation there. The 3D comb filter in this thing is why people really want to buy this thing. It's top-notch comb filter, up there with the latest and greatest of the best Pioneer players. So this looks great over S-Video. Double-sided again as well, and it's got the full Swiss Army knife of audio outputs on the back. It's got Toslink. It's got digital coaxial. It's got multiple sets of AV, RCA. It's got S-Video, anything you want. But yeah, the S-Video is where it's at. It's just a normal player over composite, but over S-Video, this thing really shines. So it's a very simple, lightweight player. I guess if there's any drawback, it's similar to the DVL players where it can go out of alignment for side B. So sometimes you need to fine-tune side B for proper playback, or else it'll stutter or it'll go wonky on you. I haven't had that problem on this yet, but it's been treating me well ever since I got it a couple of years ago now. But yeah, I just like the look of it. This is just a good, easy to find Japanese import player that just does the trick. Then yes, you have seen this if you checked out any of my Muse Saga videos or some of the LaserDisc Wolfpack episodes. There was a big story going into this where Peter Biancardi had hooked me up with a line on this player in particular, the Sony HILC2EX, a dual-sided MUSE-NTSC player. And the big kind of plus on this player is it's got obviously S-Video and composite RCA out, but it does have a direct BNC composite video out that looks fantastic. So that is what you want to get if you grab this, and it of course has a couple Muse outputs as well because it does high vision discs. So it took a little while. We got this. We were trying to fine tune it, and then it took a while to find a laser. I'd gotten a new old stock laser that was dead on arrival, and then I bought a laser from a guy in Miami who was, I don't know where he was pulling these things from, but it looked like it had been driven over by a truck. But yeah, finally got it going, and my buddy Bill, figured out how to, kind of work his way up through really fine-tuning the Sony Muse players, and even figured out the Sony jig for doing a lot of calibrating, and tuned it up for me, and I've been using this thing for, it's probably been a year or two for this one as well. Dual-sided player, so that's pretty cool. It looks fantastic with just NTSC discs alone. Looks great on Muse as well. It's one of the best players I have, so I tend to use this a lot. This is one of my daily drivers, this and the next player you'll be seeing as well. Sometimes especially if I have a dual-sided disc, I'll pop this on and just kind of kick back on the couch and not have to worry about getting up and flipping sides. And it sounds great. No complaints there. It doesn't have as many crazy features for plain old NTSC discs as some other players, but it doesn't have LDG or any of that stuff. But that's what I got the R7G for. I'm good with that. But yeah, it's a fantastic player, and it's got the nice wood sides as well. I'm always a fan of that. But let's pop in. We were watching Cliffhanger NTSC. We're going to pop in a MUSE-NTSC. So the cool thing is MUSE-NTSCs are like even faster than traditional. I don't know if you can hear it, but it like really spins up, and the MUSE light shows you that it's up and running. But yeah, the pits are much tighter, and it requires a finer laser to read them, so you can actually get high definition video, high definition analog video out of them, which is really interesting. I'll do some more videos on MUSE, and there's different audio outputs. There's an EFM track sometimes, and then there's two variants of the MUSE dance audio. There's like a 3+1 with mono surrounds, and then a center channel, and the regular left right, which is pretty nice. And then there's traditional just stereo with Dolby Surround that you can decode. But yeah, it is a beast of a player. It's been seeing a lot of action in my rig for the past couple of years, and yeah, I highly recommend grabbing one if you can. And yeah, gotta love the champagne stylings, where it's like silvery champagne. There's a couple different variants of this. One's more of a battleship gray, and then this one's a little more champagne silver. Love the Haivision LD logo on there. Oh yeah, this is a little Panasonic I got recently too. This is a MUSE-NTSC converter. Sorry for the blur there, but it is handy for MUSE players if you want to watch them on like a regular television. This is the HIL-C1. This is the Big Daddy. This is more akin to the Pioneer XO. So if you want to go for beefy single-sided power playing, this is top of the heap. Cool green MUSE light. I just love the front plate styling of this, and the kind of brushed aluminum, and then that sleek black top piece. The tray itself, it sounds like almost like a chain. It's almost like a drawbridge being raised and lowered. I love that. You're in for some serious LaserDisc action. Again, plays NTSC and MUSE-NTSC, though it's like primed for MUSE-NTSC. So if you actually put in an NTSC disc, it doesn't come up with video right away. So it's like ready to go for MUSE. So as you can see, pop in a MUSE-NTSC, it's ready to rock. But when you put in the NTSC disc, it actually has to like move the laser back and then select it, and then send it out. So yeah, this is the MSC 4000 MUSE decoder that I use. Since it's got multiple inputs, so you can see there MUSE 1 and 2, I hooked up both players so I can toggle between the two of them, and it decodes everything, decodes the audio, and sends that out. Very, very handy. And there's some different variants. There's a JVC. I don't think that people like that very much. There's two Sonys, one with wood panels on the side and one without. And then there's Panasonic. There's also a Panasonic variant of some of the Sony players as well, including this one, if I remember correctly. So, all fantastic players. And then, so if you get an NTSC disc in here, it takes a little bit to, kick out a signal. So if you have it hooked up to your TV and you're like, oh, it's just black, what's going on? Yeah, don't fret, because it has to take a second to realize that it's not a MUSE disc and kind of like wind the optics back to pick it up. But it's NTSC LaserDisc performance is fantastic. It's essentially neck and neck with the XO Pioneer. So the Pioneer XO is built like even more like a tank. This is still a pretty beefy tank. Like, I don't know if you can see the top there. It's got these like heavy duty screws in there, and it's a serious player for sure. This I had modded for AC3, which is fantastic because this and the C2EX are surprisingly earlier in the 90s than one would suspect for high definition video. So they were before AC3 came out in the market, and but since there are so many outputs on the back, my buddy Bill rewired, I believe it was the second MUSE output, and turned that into an AC3 RF coaxial output. So that was pretty handy. And yeah, it plays AC3 discs fantastic. So I forgot to mention too, the R7G also has AC3. So I use that a lot for AC3 discs, but this one's, yeah, one of my main drivers. I use it a ton of times, so it's fantastic. Well, thanks for hanging out and checking out the fleet of players. Hope you had a good time, and yeah, cheers everybody.